everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zach. Here we talk about overlanding, gear, builds, DIY, all sorts of stuff related to modifying your vehicle. Today we are going to be taking the 4Runner over to Sidco 4x4 so that we can get a re-gear started on the 4Runners. So I've been running 35s on the stock vehicle for a little while now, and I'm pretty sure that this re-gear is necessary for running 35s. I'm going to talk about the whole process of running 35s and what it all entails in a different video. That's not the point of this video, but I am going to go get re-geared. So what are some things that I bought to prepare for the re-gear? So what I initially did was I went and bought OEM gear fluid, and this was a mistake. So what I did is I called up Revolution Gears and I just asked them kind of some questions about it. And from what I understood is, they really recommend running 80W90 or 85W140 differential fluids. And you can kind of look into the numbering, and there's different theories, but basically the numbering is, the first number is operating in cold temperatures, the second number is operating in warm temperatures. The 80W90 means that the gear fluid is going to roughly operate the same in cold and hot temperatures, or basically the viscosity of that oil is going to be the same in cold and hot temperatures. And then what it basically does is if you want to run like a heavier duty vehicle or you're towing a lot, then you might consider getting the 85W140, because basically when it gets to hotter temperatures, I believe that viscosity increases so that it doesn't break down as quickly or something. So basically if your differential gets hotter, then it's going to start to break down that fluid and it's going to get ruined. I don't really know all the detail of the temperature and the relationship with viscosity, how that changes, but it stands to reason that if you have a heavier duty vehicle or you're towing a lot, your gears are probably turning and they're just under more stress. And so I decided to go with the 80W90 version because that's what most people run that are just daily driving their rigs or just running a normal vehicle that's not under some of that extra stress that I was just mentioning. So that being said, I went out to a store and I got some 80W90, and I used that fluid basically the moment I got back from the shop. So this is all just to be said that when you're prepping for a re-gear, these are some of the things that you have to buy. Look at the install instructions prior to your re-gear visit. Chances are if you go to a shop, they're just going to provide all of this for you. If you're like me and you want to have a say in all the things that are going into the whole procedure, basically what I did is I came prepared with a bunch of crush washers for the front and rear differentials and the transfer case. I came prepared with the wrong gear oil, but I quickly swapped to the correct gear oil. And then, as an optional, you can bring the transfer case fluids. From what I've seen, OEM is the best here. You can buy it on Amazon. I'll link it down below. So you can bring all those fluids, swap all those fluids, and then also you're going to need new gears. So what I did is I bought these from Running for Tacos, and they are kind of a all-encompassing re-gear build kit. So they come with all of the bearings you need. I think they have a couple of replacement seals, and they come with the paint and the ring and pinion gears, everything you need. So I'll link a lot of those things down below, and then yeah, maybe that'll be helpful for you all. But make sure to do your own research, because if you're not running these gears, maybe they recommend a different type of gear oil. And I'm not going to be held responsible for the brand of gear oil or the weights you buy, so make sure to check that out for yourself as well. But there's a lot of good OEM alternatives, and from what I've understood, a lot of guys just run 80W90, and that always seems to work really well for them. So with that being said, let's jump over to Sidco 4x4 and start this install. Check it out, guys. So we're out here at Sidco 4x4, and they have got some huge rigs. Like, it's just pretty nuts. Check this out here. This big truck here too. This place is pretty insane. They've got a lot of old trucks. They've got a lot of axles and old truck bodies, all kinds of stuff. A lot of snow everywhere because it's been snowing like mad in Minnesota lately. But I've been talking with the guys at Sidco 4x4 for quite a while here. Today we're doing my re-gear, and it's just been fun to come check out their place. The Sidco 4x4 guys, it's kind of a
a dad and son who run this shop, and they used to have a really big shop that burned down in kind of an unfortunate fire, but they've got still a nice little shop here, and they do pretty insane work, and their experience is, you know, almost second to none. Their son does a lot of the mechanical work now, but they both used to do a fair amount of it, and so the son's name is Trevor. Trevor's a good guy, and he's been working on the 4Runner with me today. Trevor is a ASE certified master tech, so he knows his stuff. He's done a lot of basic car mechanic work, as well as working on all these mudding trucks, these big lifted rigs. I mean, look at this thing here. So Sidco 4x4 isn't too far. They're out here in Glencoe, Minnesota, which is just west of the Twin Cities area in Minnesota. And you know, like I said, they've got a bit of everything here, and it's been kind of fun to check out their area. We'll probably do a full like grounds walk around of this shop in the spring when it gets a little warmer out here and we can get in between the snow piles a bit more. But they've got so many big trucks here where they've pulled big tires on, pulled big axles off of, things of that nature. But we've got some, as you can see there, looks like they've got an 80 series hiding in the snow. They've got Toyotas, Jeeps, Fords, Hummers, Chevys, so many different rigs. The nice thing too is Sidco 4x4 is stoked to partner with me, so kind of going forward I'm gonna have a code. I'll put it down below, and you can come here and get 5% off your whole build. So if you're coming here and they're ordering you parts and everything, they'll do 5% off the entire job. So I'm really appreciative of that. And Sidco 4x4 is also, they've got a really competitive shop rate. It's much lower than some of the premier shops that are kind of the name brand places to go in the Twin Cities. And so you know, not only are they a little more affordable, but with this discount code, that's going to be so awesome if some of you want to come here and get a good discount. So if we come in the front door here, as you can see, they've got some pretty crazy selection of parts. You know, walking around their yard, they've got all kinds of spare parts for just about every truck you can think of. Got some spacers on hand for adapting sizes, getting negative offset, etc. You can see they've got some extra springs. The founder of Sidco 4x4 has got this big absolute beast. So it's a pretty sweet shop. They've got so much cool off-roading stuff, and up until sort of the overlanding scene came to be in the last however 5-10 years or whatever it's been, you know, mudding and rock crawling was a lot of the off-road scene, and a lot of the shops that are around and still kicking are really knowledgeable mudding and rock crawling mechanics and shops. And so these guys really know a lot about re-gearing and building out vehicles to be super capable off-road. And so, you know, just because someone does some rock crawling doesn't necessarily mean they don't know how to work on every single aspect of your overlanding vehicle. So it's been really fun to be here today and working on the re-gear, because Trevor is really knowledgeable, and I've gotten to learn a lot. All right, so we got the 4Runner over here at Sidco 4x4. We're just putting it up on the lift. We pulled all the tires off, and now we're starting on the rear, and then we're gonna do the front second. So what we're doing right now is basically prepping to put in some Revolution gears. So I got these Revolution gears from Running for Tacos, having a local shop put them on so that we can make sure they're done nearby in case I have to, you know, go back to the person that installed them, because it's nice to be able to pick the brain that put them in. They'll know your vehicle and they'll understand it. I think it's a little difficult if you're gonna do these full gear jobs where there's some technical knowledge involved. If the person who did it is halfway across the country, it might be a little trickier. So yeah, what we're gonna do is have these put in here. Sidco 4x4 does awesome work, and I'm pretty stoked to have the 4Runner here. We also bought some of this quote-unquote off-brand fluid. 75W85 is what 4Runners take. This Redline synthetic oil also is supposedly a really good substitute for the dealer-made oil. So this is the gear oil. GL5, that's also important. And yeah, so we've got, I think in the rear it takes about 3 quarts, maybe 3.5. and then the front takes like only 1.5 or 1.8. So hopefully we'll need just about 5 of these, but I've got 6 for this, and then another 6 of these for when we do the 500-mile break-in gear fluid swap. So those are the parts. In addition, I'll leave the link down below, but I bought some extra crush washers and other diff washers because it's just nice to have them on hand. So if we come over here to the day gear install snack box here, we got this little pack. So you can get these on Amazon, and someone has been nice enough to put all 6 washers that you need into a pack. So I bought a couple extra of these. I'm gonna keep a set in my rig at all times just in case I have a problem and gotta pull some diff fluid. So that's where we're at. Like I said, starting with the rear, and then we're gonna move up to the front. So to get this started in the rear on the 4Runner, we basically got to get everything off of the axle so we can actually get at the interior of the axle housing. So what we've done here is removed the wheels, removed the brake rotors, brake caliper as well, just held back here with this bungee. I like how Trevor is doing that. And then we've got 4 bolts on the back side of this housing that we've got to remove. Same with on the other side. Let's see if I can get it. So there's 4 bolts back there. Lighting makes it a little challenging to see. There's one right there, one up there, and 2 on the other side. Once we pull those bolts, then we can get inside this axle housing and pull out that axle so we can get to the rear differential here and start pulling out the 3rd member to get it re-geared.
So what we're gonna do here, so instead of interrupting the brake system, and having to re-bleed all this, take a die grinder and nibble just a little bit out right here, enough to pull the line through there and set it off to the side. And it doesn't really affect anything when this goes back in there. Still holds everything just the same.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay. Saves a lot of time.
Saves quite a bit of time and brake fluid.
Oh, right.
So now that it's cut, I'm gonna go ahead and slide this out of here like that. And now we have the access we need to pull our axle. So that's going to be plenty of access there and plenty of allowance to let us get the 3rd member out without having to fully remove this axle and disconnect the emergency brakes. Just had to disconnect the ABS, the brake
clamp basically.
Just and then the hold down for the emergency brake cable as well. The only other thing that we need to be aware of is this O-ring here.
Okay.
And that it gets off and it gets Vaselined and this surface gets prepped. So let's get a nice good seal here and nothing leaks here after we're done with the job.
Because now that you broke that seal, you got to clean it back up.
Yep. As soon as then you can kind of see how sticky that was before and stuff. This has still just got plenty of retention. The O-ring does, but it needs to be Vaselined.
I see. Does it kind of rust close too? Almost?
Yeah, you can kind of see some of it here. Some of this, we're gonna get that all off of there, like that. And we'll Vaseline this and bring this back to life. It's through the tube. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not an immense amount, and there's actually a baffle towards the inside there, but it does allow some fluid through.
I see.
And not only that, but the axle shaft itself, as it spins, will carry fluid out to the end as well.
Interesting. So I guess since the rig looks a little bit leaning this way, so all the fluid must have come this way.
Yep, I would assume the same thing. That's why we're seeing more this way. My hoist isn't perfect either.
Yeah. Does this fluid look pretty bad?
We're gonna know when it comes out of the rest. We should probably actually drop this stuff now in the tire.
Just because it takes a little while to all ooze out, or?
It'll all come out of there. That won't be too big of a deal because we'll be pulling the 3rd member out of this unit. You know, other Chevys, Dodges, stuff like that, you definitely want to drain it prior.
Gotcha.
Because whatever you don't get out of there, you're gonna be wearing.
Right.
It's 24 mil.
24 mil. Gotcha. So is the top a breather and the bottom
Well,
is
this
the
is
drain?
gonna be our fill hole up here.
Oh, okay.
This will be our fill hole, and this is kind of where they get that hole, fill it till it comes out.
Yeah.
It's because of the line and the level that it's on.
I see.
And it still allows everything to get oiled. Same with the pinion. The pinion is also below this line as well.
I see.
And then you take the top one out typically first so the bottom one can breathe.
Right.
So instead of it chugging and making a huge mess everywhere,
gotcha.
We're going to get a nice clean stream out of here.
I see.
it's not terrible. I mean, I wouldn't run it anymore. You can see this down here.
Yeah.
See the blend of metallics in the fluid here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if it was just old oil, would it be just dark and there wouldn't be any of those light streaks, essentially?
Yep, essentially. And you can actually see the amber in this oil still. It's not terrible coming down towards the bottom. There's a lot of particulates in it, though, and it's definitely due.
Gotcha. Well, it doesn't shock me. I mean, if they did it, I think it's every 60,000 miles, at least Toyota recommends.
60, 80 typically, yeah. Most
and, well, since I bought it with 100,000 miles on it, if it was maybe done once, it's got 160 on it now. So it's
definitely do.
It's been a little while. But I was holding off because I'm like, I know I'm going to re-gear. And until I re-gear, might as well not put brand new fluid in, because if I ruin the gears, then I guess I'm just forced to re-gear early.
Yep. No,
So,
I would have to agree. The only other things you want to keep in consideration with your lube is that everything in there be starving. There's plenty of lube in there.
Right.
But what I mean by that is, like, for example, we're not replacing or doing anything with your spiders.
Right.
Or your center stuff. And this being a locking unit as well.
Yeah.
There's some other moving components in there that you
Gotcha.
might want to obviously watch the level of decay that the fluid ends up with.
Okay. Yeah. So I was kind of being a rookie there, thinking that it was just inside the middle portion. But yeah, you're right. It's oiling a lot of other things that.
There's just outside of the bearings, there's other things there that have to meet face to face. Obviously, we're changing the gears, and those are the two key components. But the spiders and the fork for the actuator for the locking unit and all that stuff all bathes in the same oil.
Right. True. So do you think it's important to like remove the third member like this when you do the fluid swap at 500 miles? Like, is that better? It's not necessary, but it's better. Like when we have to do the whole fluid drain and fill in 500 miles?
Yep. I mean, we probably won't pull the third unit unless there's reason or cause to.
Gotcha.
If the oil comes out, has any concern or any look that we don't like to it, we will certainly pull the third member and guarantee that. But as long as the backlash and all the stuff's tight when we go to look at it next time, I don't think we'll have any concern.
I see.
Since that's not a slip unit, we're going to tie it out of the way. Almost all these are indicated and marked.
It smells kind of like almost like a stinky popcorn.
It's used up fluid, I mean, stuff loses its viscosity at some point, and after it loses the viscosity, it begins to burn.
Right.
And then at that point, you kind of get some of this. The other thing is other fluids get trapped inside the unit, like inside these bolt holes and stuff, that kind of cause a rancid smell.
Huh, interesting.
Okay. So this here is our carrier. We'll be dropping the pinion, or the ring next.
Okay.
We'll pull the bearings and get ready to press our new bearings on.
Wow.
And the
Pretty quick. There's not a whole lot of working parts.
The rear is relatively simple. It's a nice system because it has these collets that allow you to adjust the backlash and the position. All right here, where a lot of rears and a lot of fronts, such as your clamshell, are going to. They still use collets. It's just the design's different. On domestic stuff, they're going to go ahead and use a lot of shims and a lot of shims under the bearings, and it just causes a lot of back and forth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As far as
it takes a lot of tuning and tweaking.
Because pulling bearings off is not easy. It's no easy feat. You're going to see, hopefully we'll be able to get these ones off, but there's a good chance that we'll end up cutting these off with a torch.
Oh, really?
Wow. You don't need to break the rest of your unit over a bad bearing or a bearing you plan on replacing anyways. A little bit of heat, a little bit of an incision on one side is going to loosen that up real nice and allow it to come off easy.
Huh. Good to know.
Well, we're gonna go through it all. Trust me.
Another thing to think about when you're doing an install, if you ever were to try and attempt this at home.
And it's one of those deals, when is the real question. If you're like you and the bearings and other things might need to be replaced. You know, where if you do the gearing earlier, you know, let's say around 50K, something like that, you know, the bearings are probably fine. You can probably get away with just switching the ring and pinion.
Gotcha.
Not having to go through the full rebuild. So this is going to be the locker side bearing. You can see the wear on the race here. And if you look real close, you can see the dimpling. That's actually hard facing coming off and breaking down. And I mean, there's still a lot of life left in these bearings, but you know, they certainly have had, you know, wear and tear, and you know, it's a good thing we're replacing them. The grooving, and then if you look real close with your eyes, you can see the speckles.
Oh yeah, it's almost like a used windshield.
Yeah,
like,
and those speckles and those dots is the breakdown of the actual two surfaces.
I see.
It is just smooth as glass. No speckling, no nothing.
It's tricky to get it in focus. There we go.
There's these Japan bearings. These are great bearings. This is high-end quality, high-end metal. And then, you know, Timken out of the USA would be, you know, comparable.
Gotcha.
And that's the only two I would thoroughly recommend. It doesn't mean that other bearings won't work, an SKF or a Napa or something like that, but if you want the longevity, you got to get the good bearings.
Gotcha. All right. Good to know.
Well,
The Revolution kit has a lot of good sort of supplemental equipment with it then.
It does. No, this is all good stuff. This is what we wanted to see in this kit here.
Yeah.
Right here. So even look, they don't have all of them in this kit either. Here's a Timken
Oh yeah.
with the coils, and typically, you know, you'd see just the Japanese bearings all together, you know, and the, but
Why
for
do you
whatever,
think they mixed and matched them?
I'd say sourcing.
Yeah.
You know?
Supply chain in the last couple of years.
Yeah, Revolution
Gotcha.
just needed the bearings, and they weren't willing to, you know, stop production on their product
Right.
for you know, substituting an equally as good bearing. It'd be
Yeah.
different if they had, you know, some subpar thing next to this good stuff, but that's
Right.
that's all plenty good.
So the top one is the 488.
Yep, this will be the 488.
And then this is 373, I think.
373s.
Does it say it on the end? Doesn't look like it.
It does not. There's the serial number.
So stock for 35s.
All right, so we're going to install this new bearing here. Kind of a strange bugger, real big. I wasn't sure I was going to have a pressing tool or not. I found this wheel bearing. Looks like it's from a Honda or something. That centers up on this cage in here, the race, real nice, and off of the cage, excuse me. And this is going to allow us to push this on here without damaging the rollers of the cage. If I didn't have this piece, I probably would have nipped this cage off with a cutoff wheel or the torch, and then used this race to push that race in without damaging the cage. It is. I'm actually rather impressed with these Revolution gears, you know, since the last time I installed a set. They never had these bevels or these machined surfaces here, and that's there to allow the ring gear to slide easily over the whole surface here and taper down, where when it's not there, you have a lot of fighting and a lot of jarring back and forth when you go for install. So this is nice, this is good. Put on one hole here, we're gonna come up one hole here, same direction. Come back and check it again. That's beautiful. It's right about where I believe it needs to be. Next we'll send up our indicator. Spread it out so we can see exactly how our teeth are meshing between the pinion and the ring. A little more. One direction will be the back side, and the other direction will be forward. We threw our paint several times, and we can see just how heavy it's setting in here, and see how it's got full contact on this tooth, pretty much front to back. We're seeing the same thing on the back side as well. That is a nice setup there. So now
Sweet.
we're going to go back through and put our pinion seal in. We're going to go ahead and put our locks on our gear, and we're going to put this third member back in. This is all 1-ton stuff over here. 14 bolts, Dana 60s, Dana 70s, things of that nature.
Wow.
Obviously, that's the motors. Here's a Land Cruiser motor right here. Motor training T-case.
Wow. So do these axle housings ever go bad? Like, could these sit here for 500 years
Yes.
and they'd be the exact same?
I mean, under real reverse situations, water running across them or something like that, you may not be able to. But out of the weather, yeah, they really sit in here. Some of the stuff my dad has owned since the 80s.
Wow.
X straps, Motors, axle shafts, motors, big block Chevy parts up there. These are all 2.5 ton axle shafts.
Jeez.
Dana 60, outer short stubs. There's a 5 ton axle shaft. Pulleys from 350s. You know, all kinds of pulley setups, all kinds of different variations. Disc brake setups. These are drive shafts here. These are the fronts.
Jeez. So a lot of this stuff is off of these army trucks where you say you can't even buy this stuff online?
A lot of this stuff is, and a lot of this is Jeep Cherokees and square bodies and vehicles we've cut and scrapped.
Oh,
okay. The parts we want off. Like I said, this whole middle row is all half-ton stuff.
Holy cow, leaf springs.
The leaf spring section, Chevys and Fords. Independent
wow.
and stuff over there. Got a couple Jeeps back here. There's the Mangler, that expanded steel floor.
Oh my gosh.
The little tires on it right now.
Yeah.
That actually survived the fire.
Oh wow.
You can kind of see some of the damage here.
Oh yeah.
Springs, leaf springs. We got in the back here in the corner is kind of the real dug up stuff. Like over here you have Dana 60 fronts, you know, stuff that was 4-link and truss, and you know, and you got homemade stuff like that one there, and that's a 2.5 ton Rocky front. Dana 60, Chevy Dana 60, Ford Dana 60.
Wow.
More axle shafts, more rears, 2.5 ton stuff, 5 ton stuff. Yeah, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything is for
Yokes.
for sure. I think it's just crazy the amount, the volume.
Yes.
It's not like you have like a couple of these, like you have 20 of each thing.
So it makes
All right, so we've had the third member pulled out a little bit, but I just wanted to show this. So we didn't actually have to take off anything at the hub. All we had to do was pop the CV axles out of the third member, and in order to be able to pop them out enough to actually clear the third member and drop it, what we did is we pulled out this link from the front sway bar. We pulled out the I think,
tie rod end.
Yeah, the tie rod end here, and that's just got like the, you know, cotter pin, and then it pops out. Get that in focus. And then yeah, the upper ball joint right up here. Pop that out, and
A few brake lines, just give you a little bit of slack.
Just getting a
Allows
little.
you to sneak the diff in and out of there without having to really take a whole lot of anything apart.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Saves a lot of time. And yeah, so here's the re-geared third member here. It's a little bit hard to film since it's smaller, but basically in here we put in like a new seal, new ring and pinion, and then we stuck with one of the front bearings and just left it in there because this is where you're going to add shims to set the backlash. And for our situation, this front bearing looked really nice, and it's really hard to pull that casing out of there. Is that what it's called? The casing?
The race.
The race. It's really hard to pull the race of the bearing out because you have to swing your hammer inside of the diff enclosure or the clamshell, the diff housing. So if every time you need to change this little spacer, you've got to pull that out, hammer it back in, pull that out, hammer it back in. So we just decided this front looked really good. The front gets a lot less wear than the rear on this sort of a vehicle because it's a rear-wheel drive car. And so unless you're in four-wheel drive always, you're really not going to wear the front bearing as much. And it looked good, so we just left it.
Believe it or not, when the vehicle's not in four-wheel drive, none of these components are actually turning as you're going down the road. Just the wheels are spinning until you gauge the T-case in and it physically drives this flange and this actuator hooks this shaft to the center. None of that stuff's moving. So believe it or not, this probably has a quarter or an eighth of the miles the actual vehicle has.
Right, because essentially
it's not driving.
Yeah, it's not moving at all.
It's not in 4x4. It is actually free floating, and that is not developing or getting any miles in those situations.
Interesting. Well, time to put this back onto the vehicle.
All right, well, we just got back from Sidco 4x4. That was a long 12-hour day. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to film some of those installs of the differentials, so we would take them out and then re-gear them and put them back in. It's roughly the same process as how you take it off, so it's not, you know, overly complicated. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we put the wrong fluid in, and from my understanding, actually using synthetic fluid is harder to break the gears in with. So a lot of the re-gear companies actually recommend non-synthetic fluid, which I thought was kind of interesting. So when I talked to them, they basically said, you know, I would run non-synthetic fluid because it allows you to heat and cool your differentials in the way we find to be most effective in braking in your gears. So basically what I did is I limped my vehicle home from Sidco 4x4, and I only drove roughly 15 minutes, and then I pulled over and I let the vehicle cool down, and then drove another 15 minutes, etc., so that the gear oil didn't get too hot and something weird would happen with the gears. So once I got home, I parked the vehicle and I ran to the store and I got some AW90 and swapped all the fluids just on the floor of my garage. The fluid swap on this is actually really not too difficult, and if you just buy a pump and the correct oil from your local auto store, it's pretty easy to do on the floor of your garage. So that's what I did. I swapped all the fluids, and ever since then, I've just been working on the break-in process. So last thing I want to mention, we had this kind of funny scare where the little actuator gear that slides inside of the rear differential had like manually on its own moved itself to the locked position when we were doing the re-gear. So all of a sudden we reinstalled everything, and when we put the actuator back in, we didn't realize that that had slid in the process of flipping the third member around. And so when we took the vehicle out for a test drive, it was like locked. So we were driving super carefully. Wasn't necessarily like an issue or anything, but we were just really confused. There was a lot of lights popping up on the screen, and we're like, oh no, did we break the rear, locker? What is going on? Turns out it was just the computer thought that the locker was off, but indeed the locker was on. So we took the actuator back off. We were able to adjust that manually back to the correct spot, and everything went away. So those are just kind of some of the aftermath things that I didn't get a chance to film, but sort of the process that I went through finishing up that re-gear. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you supporting me. And if you haven't seen the tuning video I talked about with running stock gears and 35s, go check that out. I think it was kind of an interesting video, and it talks a little bit about some of the thought processes that I went through when trying to consider which gears, which tune to run, and what size tires you can run with what tunes, all that. So go check that out. And now that we're re-geared, I will definitely be talking about sort of the break-in process for the gears, and that's going to be kind of in one of the future coming videos. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the support. If you've got any questions for me on this whole process and kind of my experiences going through it, feel free to comment them down below. Again, all my content is really just for entertainment. I'm not doing this as an install walkthrough or any sort of explanation or walkthrough process of how to do something. It's more just this is how my install went, and maybe it can help you kind of understand some of the things that I'm doing in an effort to help you get through some of your stuff and in the research that you are doing. So thank you so much for watching. I will catch you all in the next video.